Definitely, dude. It's crazy how the beginning of the week just kind of drags, and then we get to Thursday, and then there's football back on tonight, so that kind of gets the day going, speeds it up a little bit, and then tomorrow's Friday, and then we're back rolling.
Yeah.
So I love it.
Yeah, man. It's funny about Thursdays in general. I feel like Thursdays are basically Fridays because from a workday perspective, at least for me, Fridays are generally kind of light. And so like Wednesday always seems like a lot of stress. Thursday's like pretty much the weekend. So I'm excited, man.
Absolutely, dude. I can't wait. But Negus, what's up, dude? Happy Thursday. How we doing?
Yeah, what's up, Anthony? I'm currently on my way to work. Watch football, you know how it goes.
Is it just me, or is he broadcasting from another planet right now?
Coming to you live from the inside of your microwave.
You're definitely rugged, my guy. Nobody can hear you on that one. But Butt Fumble, here. Happy Thursday. How we doing?
As always, Butt Fumble Sports is amazing anytime there's football on TV, and there's going to be good football on tonight. Actually, I shouldn't say that. There will be football on tonight, and I will enjoy it. Who knows if it'll be good, but it's also great because October is maybe the best sports month of the year. I know people love March with March Madness and baseball getting started and everything else, but you got football, you got baseball playoffs, you got college football, NBA, hockey. I mean, if you don't like October, you're just not a sports fan. So Butt Fumble Sports is just loving life.
Let's go. I love it. Very well said. I personally cannot wait for baseball playoffs all weekend. I'm excited to see how the wild card round works.
Friday, man. Friday is like the first round of the NCAA tournament for a baseball fan. I mean, you got so many games, and because there aren't as many dominant teams this year, I know this isn't a football space, but I'm definitely excited for some. I know this isn't a baseball space, but I'm excited for some baseball tomorrow.
Absolutely, yeah, we'll definitely be previewing that just because there's a lot of storylines to watch. I think a lot of pretty solid matchups, and then obviously we got to cover the spread and look at the matchups in that realm. So, Butt Fumble, I'm sure you got some sweet stats for tonight, but Will, I want to go ahead and get you started. What are you bringing to the table? What should we be looking for tonight's matchup?
Man, I'm going to take it back. We're going to go back in history a little bit here. We're going to go back to when the bleachers were made of wood and the curtains were made of steel. We're going to look at the history of these two teams. Overall, the teams have played a total of 25 games, with a record in favor of the Broncos at 14-11, including the Broncos being 3-2 in the last 5 meetings. What I found is the Colts have an overall record on Thursday night of 11-3-1. It seems they really love those tie games. And the Broncos not doing actually very good on Thursday night. Their record 12-11. Now, the one thing I do believe will play a big part is these veteran quarterbacks moving to new teams. Russell Wilson sitting with an overall Thursday night record of 9-2. Pretty solid record there, Danger Russ. And then your boy Matty Ice stepping on a 7-6 all-time Thursday night record. Not so hot there, Matty Ice. We've seen both quarterbacks struggling with their new teams this year. And actually, if you really look at it, Russell Wilson is posting a career low passer rating of 83.2%. Now, one of the things I believe will be a big factor is a player named Phillip Lindsay coming up off the practice squad to play for the Colts. A guy who had quite a bit of success in Denver many years ago, but has since bounced around with teams like the Dolphins and the Texans. Even got cut by the Colts earlier this season, but they brought him back up from the practice squad to activate him for tonight's game. So that's what I got for you, man.
Yeah, Will, let's go. Can I get some hearts for my guy bringing the gridiron playlist out
Oh,
with
I
the
love it.
stats? Like, that was good, man. Let's go. I love it.
Thanks, bro.
But so what it sounds like then is off of that, straight off the rip, we should be going Broncos tonight, right? That's what you're thinking. I know the overall record isn't there, but most of those stats are in favor of Denver.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Other than the overall Thursday night record, it does seem like Denver has what's going on tonight. The other thing, we talked about it last week too, but you can't fade the road team having to travel on a Thursday for a Thursday game. Like, I can't remember what the stat was from last week, and maybe I can pull it back up, but the overall time of a home team versus a road team winning on Thursday night is like overwhelmingly in favor of the home team.
Yeah, that's something to pay attention to for sure. And you talk about the short week, but also the fact that they got to travel to Denver, high altitude.
Yep.
That always, early in the season too, guys aren't as conditioned as they are towards the middle and end of the season, so that could play a role. Speaking of that, just kind of, I'll kind of cover the injury report. Who right now we know is out of the game. Obviously, the official injury report will come out an hour and a half before opening kickoff, but right now, what we're looking at for the Colts, it's not looking good. Shaq Leonard is not playing, their star linebacker. In case you missed it, this is definitely a storyline to pay attention to, especially when we're talking about over-under any player props and just the outright score of the game. Jonathan Taylor, Colts star running back, is not playing tonight. His ankle injury, it was announced yesterday. He wasn't playing, and that's simply because it's a short week, couldn't get enough time to heal up. So John Taylor's not playing tonight. Naheem Hines is going to be the starting running back. Butt Fumble, you guys did an awesome job kind of covering that earlier in the week. I watched that video. Just breaking down pretty much, is he a start or flex kind of player for your fantasy team this week? I'll kind of save some of that for you if you want to touch on that. But Naheem Hines is starter, and Will, like you said, you're talking about Philip Lindsay. He's expected to get some snaps tonight too. So the running game will be something to watch with no John Taylor. And then also Colts safety and defensive end are not playing tonight either. So Colts have some injuries. We know about Denver. No Javonte Williams. Melvin Gordon will be the starting running back tonight. There is a prop on Bet3.pro if you want to check that out on that specific thing. But, yeah, I think injuries also, when we're just looking at the injury side of the house, it's in favor of Denver. I mean, the offense of the Colts has been slow this year, like super historically bad slow. I actually have the stat here that the Colts are the lowest scoring offense in the league with points per game. Right now, 4 weeks into the season, they're averaging – hold on, it's right – yeah, right now they're averaging 14.3 points per game. So just over 2 touchdowns a game. Denver's offense isn't that much better. They're at 16.5. That's 30th in the league. So they're the third worst offense, points per game wise. But the defenses are pretty stout. Points per game allowed for the Colts is 21. Defense points allowed per game for Denver is 17. So it's something to watch. In the last 5 matchups for the Colts, they have 2 wins, 2 losses, and a tie. So they're pretty mediocre across the board. And then for Denver, they lost last weekend in Vegas. But overall, in their last 5, they have 3 wins and 2 losses. So both teams are kind of limping into this game. The sentiment on social media is it's going to be a snooze fest. I kind of expect that. That's why I do love the under tonight. But nonetheless, I think it's just one of those things that there's a lot of key storylines that aren't going to make this a fun football game to watch unless something happens like it's super sloppy. But even the weather looks like it's going to be fine for tonight's matchup. So just recapping there, low-scoring game expected, especially looking at the trends. No John Taylor tonight, no Shaq Leonard for the Colts, and then short week is really in favor of the home team. Negus, what about you, man? What are you looking at tonight for this matchup?
Well, that depends. Can you hear me now?
Hey, Firm, we got you, man.
All right, perfect. Kind of piggybacking off of Will. Like, I know the Colts have been pretty much limping all season long as far as their offense goes. Their defense, like you said, has been stout. I plan on seeing Russ cook a little bit more tonight. I feel like they might get their offense going a little bit more tonight. So I'm leaning more towards Denver. But That's pretty much all I got.
Yeah, that's fair. And one of the things with that too, just looking at their offense, yeah, it's been a slow start to the year. Last week, they definitely did a little bit better. Obviously, they scored 23 points versus the Raiders. They lost 32-23, but that definitely brought up their points per game average. But nonetheless, I mean, it's just that there's so much talent on that offensive side of the ball with Cortland Sutton. Uh, you know, it just Russell himself, Melvin Gordon's a star running back, Jerry Judy's a beast. Like they have guys over there that can make plays. It's just a matter of the scheme, right? It's just a matter of if Nathaniel Hackett can call a game that allows them to kind of execute. Because another key matchup, and I'll kind of touch on it a little bit more later in the game, or excuse me, later in the space when we talk about matchups to watch. Really, I think it's going to be Patrick Surtain just going up against Michael Pittman Jr. So, Buff Fumble, you got something there?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking a lot about some of the facts and storylines leading into this game that have me excited about it. You just hit on one of my favorite players in the NFL right now, Patrick Surtain II, just a lockdown corner. There's a reason he was such a high draft pick out of Bama. And if he's coming out of the secondary at Alabama, you know he's well coached by Nick Saban himself. To give some gambling trends, I know some of you guys hit on it earlier, but these are a few that I picked up on. The Colts are 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games following a straight up loss. The Broncos are 11-4 against the spread in their last 15 Thursday night games. The under is 9-0 in the Colts' last 9 games overall. The underdog is 5-2 against the spread in the last 7 meetings. And the Colts are 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 meetings in Denver. Now, some of those trends work against each other. There are 2 that really stand out for me. The Colts being 9-0 on the under in their last 9 games, as JT alluded to on the Tuesday space that I hosted earlier in the week. I love the under, and I loved it then. I love it now. I'm always going to be someone who likes to buy a 1.5, get myself a little bit of security. You're going to hear that as a theme of mine on all my picks. But that said, I like the under tonight. JT alluded to it. These are 2 of the lowest scoring offenses in the league, and both are down their star running back. The question is the loss of Javonte Williams going to be more devastating, or the loss of Jonathan Taylor? Personally, I think it's going to be the loss of Jonathan Taylor because the Broncos defense is better. So because of that, I like Broncos to cover. I want to buy that down. I want to get that under a field goal. So if I'm getting 2.5 or better, I think that's a good bet. If it goes above that, I wouldn't touch it. But I like the under more than anything. My best bet of the night for this game is the under. If these teams go over, they're breaking a lot of trends. If that's the case, so be it. But in going with the trends and going with what we've seen so far this year, the under is the smart play. One other note before I let JT take it over. Matt Ryan right now, over half an interception. 99% of public money is on that. First of all, think about that. Think about America literally voting Matt Ryan off the NFL island, so to speak. But second of all, that tells you something. Everyone trusts the Denver defense. Everyone believes that at Mile High, they're going to be loaded up. The crowd's going to be into it. No Jonathan Taylor. Matt Ryan over a half an interception. I already put money on it. I'm putting multiple units on it. If it doesn't happen, so be it. But if the public feels that strongly about it and Vegas feels that strongly about it, who am I to disagree?
Yeah, 99% is. I mean, do you remember the last time you've seen like a that heavily favored?
I mean, there are a few like Carson Wentz throwing an interception or Matt Stafford throwing an interception, but it is to this point of or Kirk Cousins having an interception on a primetime game. It's those kinds of everyone believes this guy is going to poop his pants. And I think everyone's saying right now, Matt Ryan is looking like a guy who can't get through a game without either having a tip ball, having just a duck, or just chucking it and it's just an easy pick for the secondary. So I think the over half an interception is a really easy play. And I think the fact that America is getting behind it, to your point, JT, that should just tell you if you're not hammering it, man, you must have some cojones because America is firmly behind one outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's we had on Monday night the Rams versus the Niners on Bet3.pro. There was one that was Nick Bosa getting over or under 0.25 sacks, and he got 2 sacks that night. That was like a no-brainer. But on the flip side of that, we also had that with Aaron Donald, over under 0.25 sacks. He actually didn't end up getting one at all. So there is that risk there, right? The 99% sure does seem like a sure lock. I do think he's going to throw at least one interception, especially without a lack of the running game. Just what John Taylor is able to do on offense. They're going to try to throw the ball. They're going to try to use play action. They're going to try to push the ball down the field.
And JT, to even that point, if I'm taking the interception by Matt Ryan and he doesn't hit it, that may suggest that he's not throwing the ball as much, which helps my underplay. So even though it's a prop bet versus an over-under play, I'm kind of hedging because either one is going to hit or both could hit in my favor. But it tells me, if nothing else, the public believes it's going to be an under. And that only, because of the interception, it almost gives me validation or confirmation or affirmation for my other bet.
I love that balancing act between taking a risk per se, and then also just with the strong conviction play of the under for sure. I think, one of the things that I'm seeing right now is the unders also. I don't know if you covered this, Butt Fumble, but just to further back that up on one strong conviction here is the unders in primetime are 9-4 this season. So there's just a lot on the line there. There's a lot that makes sense with it.
I would recommend, JT, to that point, if early on in the game, if in the first quarter, one of two things happens, either the Colts get out to an early lead or there are a lot of flags early on for like pass interference, roughing the passer, then I would make an in-game bet. Because if the Colts jump out early, I'll take the Broncos to cover, where I wouldn't feel the other way around. If the Broncos get out to an early lead, I don't think the Colts will come back. But I like that cover play. But if the flags come out early, I'm still waiting for the NFL to want more offense. Because to your point about the primetime games, so far this year, we haven't seen that many points in primetime games. When's the NFL going to start rigging this like we always expect them to? So if the flags come out early, it tells me that maybe Goodell finally said to the refs, hey, let's get some points when the lights are on. That's the only thing I'm watching. But going into the game, I feel really good about the under.
Absolutely. That's a great point, too. A lot of them have been sleepers, so maybe they will. Maybe they'll try to interject themselves into the game like we know and love the refs to do. So we'll see on that one. Another thing that I'm seeing, when the line opened, it was 43.5. Yesterday it was 42.5, and now it's down to 42. So we'll see if that kind of shifts at all for the rest of the day prior to the matchup. But you can all the trends are kind of working towards a lower scoring game. But nonetheless, we'll see how it goes. Cody, what's up, man? How we doing? Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday, JT. What's going on, dude?
Not much, man. We're just previewing the game tonight. We got Butt Fumble in here. We got Will. We got everybody dropping some stats for tonight. We think it's going to be a low scoring game. I'm interested in what you got.
Yeah, I think that it's gotten a little sharper on the under and kind of, everybody's kind of on that now. So trying to find other ways to play similar things. Like, we have old man Matt Ryan that can't move in the pocket. I kind of like Bradley Chubb or Draymond Jones to get a sack. So I'm kind of trying to play it different ways like that. You can get plus money on Bradley Chubb to get a sack. He's their premier pass rusher. You could play it the other way where I think that there's some value in a few touchdown scores. Like I can see either, Pittman or Cortland Sutton with, the big running backs down on each side. I'm just trying to find a way to play it a little bit different because I took the under early in the week at 43.5. I liked a lot more than 42, obviously. So I want to play this game another way. So I'm just looking at other player props.
Nice, man. That's what's up. Yeah. We just kind of, Butt Fumble and I were talking about the impact that Surtain's going to have tonight. We think that without Jonathan Taylor, they're going to try to get the ball to Pittman. And if you look up here in the pin tweet in the chat, Surtain has just been locked down all season. Like he's not let up a receiving touchdown yet. So I think there's a really good chance that we'll see good matchups on the field. And that should make it pretty interesting because that's kind of when there are these dunder and blunder type games, it's like you're trying to find something to watch. So that'll be something I'm watching regardless of what kind of the outcome is throughout the game. So, Negus, what's up, man? What you got?
So, are you guys placing any value on Philip Lindsay having like a revenge game tonight? That's something I'm thinking about.
For me,
revenge game would be pretty bold. Revenge game
Yeah.
would suggest that he is like emerged as a starter and has had reps, and like the offensive line of the Colts is like behind their guy, and they want to give him an opportunity to show out against his former team. I think this is more of a spot start by a guy they picked off the scrap heap who like still probably has some miles left in the tires. But revenge game, that would be a bit extreme for me.
Yeah, I concur as well, especially because they just signed him off the practice squad. He hasn't had a lot of reps. It was a short week. I don't expect him to kind of go out there and just light them up, especially because when you're looking at the Broncos defense, they are allowing quite a bit of rushing yards at 114 average right now, but the Colts are only averaging 88 yards rushing per game. So, without Jonathan Taylor, maybe that kind of opens them up a little bit more, but I don't see him going off and having a big game either. Just something to watch, though. I know it's his former team, right? There's that storyline, but I don't think it's going to be anything more than a storyline.
Yeah, I just saw a couple of people thinking that might be a play, and I was leaning more towards what you guys are thinking as well. I just wanted to get a second opinion on it.
I do like Nyheim Hines a bit in this game, though, and that's more because I'm probably biased in that I love Nyheim Hines as a player. I think he's really versatile. He doesn't get used enough. I always felt like he was kind of the odd man out in the Colts backfield, but he can catch, he can run, he's got speed. He's not the best pickup blitzer, but like he's not the worst either. To me, he's like a poor man's James White in that he's probably not as solid at all of those things, but he's pretty good. And so getting him into this game, I actually think in some ways may help the Colts. It was one of the reasons I actually thought about, where the underplay was going. And Cody talked about how the line movement went. There's a part of me that thinks Nyheim Hines is a player you go to who can get like 15-yard chunk plays. Again, I think of a Patriots guy in the backfield like Kevin Falk, where Jonathan Taylor, he's getting 25 touches a game, so the defense can load up in the box, and that kind of slows things down. The clock burns, fewer points, the under gets safer. But with Nyheim Hines, I feel like they could be in shotgun a lot tonight, and Hines could still be the run play. He could be getting a screen pass. He could be getting something in the flat. So Nyheim Hines, I don't, Cody, Bet3, he's the expert on player props, and I love getting his advice on all of this. Bet3, by the way, for everybody out there, definitely check it out. Fantastic what Cody's putting together. That said, I'd be curious to know what his Nyheim Hines' totals are. I recommended to people earlier in the week, if you needed a substitute at running back, Nyheim Hines might be someone to consider in a flex role, because I could see him getting 70 yards of scrimmage yards and maybe a touchdown, and then all of a sudden, that's a really solid day for Nyheim Hines. So just something to consider. Would love to get Cody's reaction to my thought.
I'm one of the biggest Nyheim Hines fans. I think that's a great call. His lines are 35.5 rushing and 27.5 receiving. So between those two, I think you're right. I think receiving might be a little bit stronger of a play because he's going to see 45 targets, right? And I think that he's criminally underrated. I appreciate the Kevin Falk throwback too. Like that's a good call out. But I like Nyheim Hines, especially receiving, because the one thing I was just looking at that kind of stands out to me is I know Matt Ryan, we all, he's past his prime, whatever, but he's still averaging, almost 270 passing yards a game in his last 5 games. His total's only at 231. No Jonathan Taylor. Like 231 does seem a little low for an underdog, giving 3 points. It just seems like they're going to be trailing. They don't have that big back to give 20, 30 carries to. Even if it's inefficient, he's hit way over this mark twice this year, been just barely under the 2 times he didn't hit 231. So I can see Matt Ryan at 231. It's ugly, but it's probably like some of the best value I'm looking at so far.
Okay, so I like that. That's something I wasn't really thinking about. So, Cody, you're saying potentially going over for Matt Ryan. Those lines seem super low for Hines, especially now that Taylor's not playing. Like, that's something that I'm glad you brought that up because I wasn't even looking into potentially his receiving and rushing yards. So I really like that play as well. Buff Fumble, while I got you here, we have Fleece asking a question. is it a breakout game for Sutton? And is Judy worth starting over Tyler Lockett? I'm interested in your take there.
Interesting. Sutton, I like only because I'm not crazy about the Colts defense. I think the Colts defense has a lot of problems. I think the Colts, especially without Leonard, they haven't been the same this year because they don't have the stabilizing force in the middle of the defense. And I think that's affected both their ability to rush the passer and their ability to play the secondary. So because of that, because he's not playing, and please, JT, correct me if I'm wrong, because he's not playing, I do like Sutton a lot. I also think that Russell Wilson is a guy who falls in love with a target, and you just know that's his go-to guy. Sutton's emerged as that. I wish Judy would, because Judy got so much speed. If Judy were the Lockett and Sutton were the DK Metcalf, I could really see the Broncos offense taking off. But that said, I like Sutton more in today's game. As for Lockett versus Jerry Judy, I'm someone where I need to see the evidence before I can actually have the conviction to put someone in my lineup. I haven't seen it yet from Judy, where Lockett, I actually like him a little bit more because I think Geno Smith going down to New Orleans, they could have a decent day together. I really don't like either one, if I'm being honest, because I'm relying on Russ to cook or Geno Smith to keep up this streak. However, that said, I'm really more about the Courtland Sutton part of the question. I think Courtland Sutton could have a strong game. I think he should get a touchdown especially because Russ, he's going to target a bigger receiver in the red zone. And without Javonte Williams, Russ is probably going to be throwing in the red zone at a greater percentage because he doesn't have the bell cow back. So just something to think about if you're having Sutton in your lineup.
And to ride the hot hand too, Geno Smith is arguably, and I think we can all kind of agree on it, he's having a better season so far over Russell Wilson, right? A lot of people and a lot of media is kind of overreacting.
I don't want to overplay that though, JT. The only reason that I think Geno Smith was actually set up for more success right away. So it's easy to take stats from the first 4 weeks and be like, oh, he's got more passing yards, or oh, he's got more passing touchdowns. Well, yeah, Geno Smith has been in that system, and the entire offense has been in that system. And the only person who was new was like Noah Fant. Pretty much the entire Seahawks offense is pretty much the same as it was before. It's Russell Wilson and the Broncos that are starting from scratch. New head coach, so everyone on the team has to learn a new system. They don't have any previous chemistry with Russell Wilson. So there's just a lot of things that need to go right for them to have a good first 4 weeks. Those things didn't happen. But this is one in which these are two ships kind of going back and forth. And Russell Wilson will ultimately get farther, and he'll get to the end. The kind of stats we expect. I think Geno Smith is going to plateau at some point.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's kind of my reaction to it as well. Like, it's not really fair to compare them, and especially when we're talking about comparing Geno Smith now to Russell's legacy in Seattle. He was in that system for so long, and we talked about this earlier this week on a space. A quarterback going into a new system is like learning a new language, right? So it's taken Russell time. Yeah, he's worked with his receivers in the offseason, and they're getting the reps now, but it still takes time when you're actually out there playing full speed against guys that want to take your head off, and we're seeing that so far. And to this point, I think tonight's game is a big, big measuring stick for the Broncos offense. Yeah, it sucks that they've lost Javonte Williams for the rest of the season, but they still have Melvin Gordon, who can now be a guy who is their for sure starting running back. And they can, as long as they can get Sutton receptions and targets, that's going to open up Jerry Jeudy for sure. I mean, I was expecting him to have a monster season. And I still think it's possible for him to have a great season, but you're right, Butt Fumble. It's just going to take time for them to learn the system, learn the offense, and execute it. And that's what we've seen with Russell holding the ball for as long as he's been holding the ball. I mean, he's not getting the ball out quick. He's pressured. He looks visibly, the eye test right. He doesn't look comfortable in the offense. And it's just going to take them time to get everything set up in Denver. And I think tonight's a big game and a big step in that direction for sure.
Can someone confirm for me, is Nathaniel Hackett the play caller for the Broncos? Because one of the things I like the least in the NFL is when my head coach, my first-time head coach, my first-year head coach, is also the offensive play caller. It's one thing if you're Sean McVay and you're like a genius, but I find so often when that's the case, it takes a long time for the offense to find its rhythm and chemistry because the head coach has so many responsibilities There's so much they're thinking about during the game. One of the things I actually liked about what Sean McVay did is he would go away and be with the defense, and he wouldn't like try and manage the entire game. I feel like Nathaniel Hackett's kind of failed in that area. I think it's had a negative effect on Russ's development and the offensive development. Again, it's week 5, so I don't want to overreact. I expect these things to get smoothed out, but it kind of explains what we've seen in the last month.
Yeah, and to answer sorry, Cody, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, Hackett definitely does. I mean, I'm like 90% sure Hackett still does call the plays. You know, he mentioned it after week 1, saying that, I'm still gonna continue to do it. There's a little bit of struggle to manage both the plays and the rest of the team, but he'll figure it out. So I think he still does. I know he was after week 1, but JT.
Yeah, that was the question that they even asked him this week. He's still calling plays, so he's going to keep calling plays. That's like you kind of touched on, Cody. They added in that time clock management coach that's going to kind of be that voice of reason of this is the situation, this is what you should do type stuff. But Buff Fumble, to your point, like if he's the head coach, he doesn't have to do that, right? And if you're the head coach, you're the figurehead of the team, right? So if I'm the figurehead of the team, then I want to have the full essay of what's going on, and that would allow them to manage a game rather than just focus on primarily one side of the ball. Because Bruce Arians was a big proponent of this. He started when he was head coaching doing both, and he said, "Nah, screw that. This is why I have coaches. I'm going to let them do it. It's their job, and they'll work for me."
I like it sometimes, and I don't want to put in too many Patriot references, but for every Bill Belichick, there can be an Ernie Adams. Like, it's okay to have a genius on the sidelines who's managing clock or challenges or other things. To me, it was more they put way too much on his plate early on, and especially because you have a new quarterback. Everyone thinks, add a star quarterback, mix with water, and you're good to go. Not everyone's Tom Brady. Like, that's not usually the case. It usually takes some time, especially because of Russell Wilson, because I think Russell Wilson doesn't like to play within a system. I think Russell Wilson likes to play to his favorite targets, and then he just likes to go around and play backyard football. So especially if a coach is coming in trying to install an offense and you have a quarterback who doesn't necessarily take to that immediately, it's just going to have to work itself out. I do like to go back to some of the gambling bets of this game. I do like the Broncos to cover if I can get it under a field goal, because I do expect them offensively to turn a corner. I'm kind of waiting on it, and I don't feel the same about Matt Ryan, to shift the conversation away from Russell Wilson and to take that same conversation on the other side to Matt Ryan. He's a guy who came from somewhere else. The offense was already established. Everyone was ready to go. And it was Matt Ryan who has actually been the disappointment. I think the Colts are in a position where, how soon do you start talking about tanking? Like, how soon do you start talking about the draft? Because they are dangerously close to being irrelevant, especially after what I saw last week. They got bullied at home by Derrick Henry and the Titans. And Matt Ryan just looks old. I like Matt Ryan. He's a good guy, I think. He's certainly had his moments in the league. But it's finally reached a point where you look like you can't do this at the same speed and at the same quality. And you're not Peyton Manning with the mind. Your arm and your mind seem to be slower and weaker. So I'd love to hear what people say about Matt Ryan tonight.
Will, I want to get your thoughts as a lifelong AFC South person. What do you obviously your Titans beat them last week. What are your thoughts from what you've seen and how they're going to look tonight?
Yeah, so Matt Ryan looks like he's just out of place right now. Like, there's a lot, I think, going around just in general about quarterbacks that change teams. We've seen a couple of the super duper superstars go change team and have success. Peyton being one of those in Denver. Your boy TB12 being another one. Matt Stafford, I guess success is relative, but they did win a Super Bowl. So I think Matt Ryan is out of place. I think he is still finding the offense. I think their offensive line is a bigger reason why Matt Ryan has had so many struggles. Probably has some pressure too, to feel like he's got something to prove and has to be bigger than what the position is requiring from him. So you see him, 9 fumbles so far this season? Like, that's too many, man. And he even said it himself. He's got to keep both hands on the ball and do a better job of protecting the football. So whether it be the tip passes or the interceptions we're expecting tonight or the fumbles. I mean, I don't think they'll have it figured out. I don't think you figure it out on a short week when you're traveling. And I think Matt Ryan can be a good quarterback. I just don't know if he's quite got it figured out yet with the Colts and what they're doing in the offense.
Fair enough. Ryan, thanks for being up here. I'm interested. What are your thoughts here tonight looking at the Colts?
Looking at the Colts, I think Matt Ryan's on the decline of his career. Doesn't mean the career is over. I think he could be, reinvigorated if they get the right pieces around him. But, tonight's game, looking at not Seahawks, but I say Seahawks because I watched them for 9 years with Russ Wilson there. The Broncos are only averaging 18 points a game through the first 4 weeks of the season. So I am 100% going on the under with this one tonight. But Russ Wilson demands a different style of offense, and he's a different player. We had the weirdest scores every single game in Seattle for the most part. I mean, 10-11 this season with the Broncos against the 49ers. You got 16-9. You got 16-17. So I feel like it would be a good game to tease because this one is not going to be high scoring, and I don't see that offense getting on to roll at this point.
Ryan, I appreciate that, and I think you're spot on. And the craziest part to me that we talk about Jonathan Taylor, he struggled this season. We talk about Matt Ryan, he struggled, so many turnovers. Well, I don't feel like enough people are talking about how poor the Colts offensive line has performed.
True.
You got to think about this. They have the most expensive offensive line in the entire NFL, right? Last season, the issue that they saw was Carson, when he got pressured, he turned the ball over. Well, this season, in 3 games, the offensive line led up 12 sacks. It's 3rd in the league. And at that rate, Matt Ryan's not going to make it to the end of the season because he's going to get hurt so much.
Yeah.
And we all know that Quentin Nelson is obviously one of the best guards in the NFL. That is really not up for question. I mean, he is a stout offensive lineman, but all these other guys that they've brought in have just struggled picking up the blitz, and they haven't been able to protect him, and which also has hurt Jonathan Taylor. So that's one of the storylines to watch tonight. Can the Broncos pass rush and their front 7, can they scheme the game to where they're going to apply blitzes and pressure Ryan enough and force him to make a turnover?
JT, one thought on that, at least to the Matt Ryan offensive line comment, I actually saw a stat earlier in the week about Frank Wright coach teams in which they're in the first 5 weeks of the season, they have a losing record. And then the rest of the year, they are multiple games above 500 each year. So it's interesting to note that he may be just a head coach, whether it's with his schemes, the blocking, however they go about things. Maybe he's easier on them in preseason, so they come out. I don't know. But to your point, I have a lot of faith in the offensive line of the Colts. They have disappointed me, but I don't feel the same about the Colts offensive line like I do the Titans. The Titans looks like it's no longer a strong offensive line. The Colts, they're still good. I just felt like they haven't clicked yet for whatever reason. So I'm less worried about that. And I think tonight may be an example of them starting to play a little bit better, because I actually don't see as many sacks in this game coming from the Broncos defense.
Hey, JT, can I jump in real quick? I want to ask this question because we're talking about gambling. We're talking about lines. How much different does everybody look at a Thursday night game rather than a traditional Sunday game that's not in England?
What do you mean by that, Ryan? Are you saying just in general, how do we view Thursday night games, or
no? How do you when you're looking at betting, because that's a quick turnaround. If you're the road team, you've got 1.5 days to practice, then you're traveling and you're coming off a short week. So how does that affect the way you guys look at lines when you want to make a bet?
I like that question. Cody, I want to start with you, boss man. What is your perspective when you're looking at a Thursday night game coming off a short week?
I think it typically, this is super overgeneralizing, but I think it favors the offense a little bit. I think defense, the longer you have to prepare, the more time you get to watch film. I think it helps more so because, an offense can always just go back to what they do best as opposed to trying to game plan in reverse. I think that's like a super overgeneralization, but that's like the first thing I look at.
Yeah, I tend to agree as well. I've always kind of said that, or my just personal belief is the beginning of the season, especially like the first couple weeks, it always to me tends to favor the offense because defense doesn't have as much time to prepare. You get out there and they throw things, the speed of the game, like all the moving parts that factor in. I think it favors the offense because it's a little easier to adjust on the fly, especially when you're talking about changing your play calling because you get to be proactive rather than reactive. So that's kind of my thought process with it as well. I always kind of look at that and kind of say, okay, well, what's the injury report, right? Who are the guys that got banged up last week? How does that play into the preparation of this week and then moving forward? Because you got to imagine in the NFL, Monday's an off day for every team. So them coming off really a 1 day of practice and travel walkthrough, like they're really not having a lot of time to prepare. So my thought process, Fumble take when you're looking at the fantasy side and gambling side.
Yeah, when I look at Thursday night games, the first thing I look at, JT hit it perfectly. I look at the injuries because think about a normal week, a normal Sunday. You're getting injury reports on Wednesday and Thursday, and that's going to inform kind of where the line moves. You don't get that extra bit of time on the Thursday night game, so you get an advantage as a bettor against Vegas because you can work with injuries. For example, I didn't think Jonathan Taylor was going to play in this game 2 days ago, but the line was more in my favor then on everything when the Vegas had to at least protect itself. So the injuries are going to play into how Vegas sets things, and that's where you can take advantage of it. I really like it as well. To Cody's thinking, if you can get a player prop on someone who you think is going to have a moment or have an opportunity because, again, you know where the injury news is probably going to go and you can get ahead of that, there's just a good opportunity for it. When it comes to the line, it was mentioned earlier, the home, I think Rhino, you even talked about it. It's what's the travel situation before them and how many days of recovery at home do these teams get? So if you're a road team, especially if you just traveled, if you were on the road, then you have to go back to your home stadium and then or home facility, and then you're traveling Thursday night to play on the road. That's just brutal. Like, just expect a loss, expect low offense from them. So in this game, one of the reasons I like Denver, they didn't have a lot of travel. They were at Vegas. But the whole point is that's not a lot of travel going into this game. I'm sure they got home early and they've had plenty of days of recovery. Meanwhile, on the other side, there's just the Colts, like I said, got banged up. They have a short week. They don't have their starting running back. So injuries, travel, to me, those make the biggest bit of difference.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it really is the human element of the game that is hard to kind of predict. But when you keep it really simple and you look at it from historical trends, like these guys take a beating, they need the rest, they're not getting the rest. Expect sloppy football, turnovers, penalties, whatever the case may be. It's kind of just keep it simple in that realm is kind of how I look at it for sure. But I kind of want to get the Butt Fumble looking ahead, right? If you're confident in the Colts offensive line figuring it out, should we be panicking and worried about Jonathan Taylor, or do we think that he too is going to be able to figure it out and the Colts will kind of find their way and rise to the top of the AFC South?
Every year, there is a running back who goes off. It's Derrick Henry. It's Jonathan Taylor. There is a running back every year who has a massive fantasy year. And everyone goes, oh, that guy's going to do it again. He's going to have another great year the following year. And it doesn't happen. He either gets injured, or his offensive line isn't as good, or defenses are simply waiting for him to get the ball 25 times a game. And so it's harder to cover him. Look at Saquon Barkley, all that he's been through, how defenses have approached him. He's just now reemerging and having another breakout year. But that's the kind of trend for star running backs. So I don't put it on Jonathan Taylor, and I think he will have better games coming up this season. I do think water finds its level eventually, but is he going to have the kind of season that fantasy owners were banking on? No. The Yankees are going to overpay for Aaron Judge. He just hit 62 home runs. He's not going to do that again. So Jonathan Taylor wasn't going to have another breakout unbelievable year. It just doesn't happen that often. So expect him to still be an RB1, but don't expect him to all of a sudden have these 200-yard games. Expect him to be a solid starter for maybe 10 more weeks of the season, and then a bunch of weeks he's going to be injured or he's going to be a disappointment. But he's a good player. If you're in a dynasty league, like, don't give him up. But he's not going to have the kind of year that was worth a first overall pick, or if you're in an auction league, some of the stupid prices that were being put out there.
I appreciate that perspective, and that's one of the age-old, you don't pay running backs, right? And it always ends up kind of coming to fruition, and the reason for that is, to that point, it works in a season for multiple reasons. It's not like it's going to be a cookie cutter every single season, because we even saw it last year with Derrick Henry. Yeah, he would have won the rushing title for sure if he hadn't had that foot injury when you look at those numbers. But he is not he consistently is one of the top 3 running backs in the league for sure. He's also an anomaly. 260, can run a 4.5 40, right? He's a ridiculous athlete. But Fumble, what you're saying, I love it, because I've always felt that way. And even from a fantasy perspective, that's why I never put a lot of stock in running backs, because of that reason. Like, it's very difficult for them to replicate high levels of success, because the offensive line personnel will rotate, the coaches will rotate, the defenses have a full 17, 18 game, season worth of film that they can then game plan for, especially when you're talking about teams in the division. So I kind of see that as where they're headed. I still think he can be a 1,000-yard rusher, but an ankle injury for a running back is a serious injury, because if he can't cut and he doesn't have the confidence that he can make those elusive moves, it's going to be something that's in the back of his head for the rest of the season. Ryan, what are your thoughts on that? Just looking at Jonathan Taylor and moving forward.
You know what? Running backs, their career spans are pretty low. I mean, if you look at the average, you're looking at like 4.5 years for the most part. So, one, I think they should get paid. But two, when you're talking about fantasy, you also have to look at scheme. If you're in a PPR league and you have a running back that is catching more passes than, producing with yards running the ball, then it's a different story. But guess what? Those are still 2 more hits that they're taking every game. So it's really difficult to judge. But yeah, I think Taylor will be fine. The problem with Taylor is the load is on him. That offense runs off him. If Matt Ryan is going to be successful, he needs Taylor in that backfield.
Yeah, absolutely, because it just frees him up. And the crazy part with that, I think a lot of people are kind of giving Matt Ryan you're 37 years old, you've been around, you've done your thing. But you got to remember, I mean, he was able to push the ball downfield last season. I mean, Kyle Pitts was catching the ball from him. Yeah, it's the Falcons, but
Who?
As a
Who?
fan of the
Kyle Pitts.
South,
I haven't heard of him. Is he still playing? I don't hear about him anymore. Does he even exist? Is Kyle Pitts even still in this league?
Kyle Pitts is on my shit list because I unfortunately drafted him. He's done absolutely nothing, and he has been on the injury report and out of practice the last 2 days. So unless he practices tomorrow, he ain't playing Sunday. I'm not confident in that, which as a Bucs fan, I'm very happy about that. But anyhow, you got to remember, Carson Wentz balled out last year on Indy. And Butt Fumble, you talked about it earlier. I think a lot of that was the success of Frank Reich as a head coach. Eberflus was their defensive coordinator. They were able to be very solid. And because they had the running game, Carson Wentz was able to push the ball downfield, throw touchdowns. Yeah, we get it. He lost to the Jaguars. They missed the playoffs. Ultimately got him fired. He got hit a lot. He got hurt a lot. That's Carson Wentz football. But Matt Ryan has just showed up. And again, new system, new language, new lingo, new players, new everything. He struggled a lot. But we'll see. I still think the AFC South is weak. No offense, Will. We'll kind of see what the Colts look like here. And, by the end of October, see where they kind of fan out.
Well, guys, that's my exact point. We're talking about Russ Wilson and Melvin Gordon and success tonight. How's that offense going to run? Russ Wilson would not be the same quarterback he is today if he didn't have Marshawn Lynch in Seattle. And it kind of feels like the same setup now for Matt Ryan.
Oh, interesting. So you're thinking in what realm? Like he has with his running game?
No, Russ needed he needed the running game to play off of his strengths. And we know that with guys that do RPOs and whatnot. But Russ would not have been the same quarterback had he not had that strong running game behind him, because that running game sets up his strengths.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry, I misunderstood the first go round. Absolutely. And Ryan, to your point, I think that's why they have struggled so much. They're averaging 88 yards a game per on the ground, letting up sacks. Third most in the NFL. Because of that, they're not able to run the ball. That doesn't allow them to push the ball down the field and show Matt Ryan what he can do in Indy. And Ryan, you know it better than anybody as covering Seattle. You said for 9 years, Russell Wilson's probably the best deep ball thrower in the NFL. So that makes you bullish on guys like Jerry Jeudy and possession receiver like Sutton. We just haven't seen it yet. Now that doesn't mean we're not going to, but I haven't seen a Russell Wilson deep ball, beautiful bomb in Denver yet. And maybe we'll see it tonight. I just don't think we will. Buff Fumble, send it.
Is Russell Wilson one of the best deep ball throwers in the league? I don't mean to have two rhetorical questions in a row after the Kyle Pitts comment and now this, but to me, Russell Wilson hasn't been that in a while. I know he used to throw a beautiful deep ball when it was like, the Fail Mary, but that was a while ago. And I think there's a narrative built around Russell Wilson, and there has been for some time, that he's a very consistent player year to year. He's really not. He has his moments, but overall, he's not Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady or some of these guys who week in, week out, they're very consistent. Russell Wilson is really a crapshoot, and he's had amazing receivers. Like, this dude has never had a time where he didn't, other than Doug Baldwin years early on. And to Rhino's point, he had Marshawn Lynch, who was just a beast. So Russell Wilson's had a lot of things built in for him. To get to Rhino's point in another way about Matt Ryan and not having his running back, I feel like Matt Ryan desperately needs to have play action. I actually think both of these quarterbacks thrive on play action. And if Matt Ryan doesn't have that, that really slows him down. That makes him, he doesn't get the ball out fast enough anyways. So he always needs the defense to just be on their heels. He needs them to pause the extra beat if he's going to find an open target. It's one of the reasons I like Nyheim Hines tonight. I mentioned it earlier from a prop player play. I mentioned it earlier from a fantasy play. But one of the reasons I like Nyheim Hines in this game is because I think Matt Ryan's going to need a running back on the field to draw in the defense. So if nothing else, even if the play isn't designed for Nyheim Hines originally, he could be the guy who's the decoy in the play action, and then he just slowly drifts out and catches the dink and dunk passes Matt Ryan's going to need to be successful. So bringing it back to kind of a gambling and fantasy standpoint, I really like Nyheim Hines in this game, in part because it's how the offense runs around Matt Ryan, and that makes Hines, an ideal play.
Absolutely, I appreciate that, but Fumble. I think it's going to be a point to watch on the Colts offense and see how they go, how they operate. Can they get the ball to Hines? Will that open up the deep ball? How's that matchup going to be with Surtain versus Michael Pittman? I really don't even know who's the number 2 receiver in Indy. That's how poor that offense has been throwing the football. So we'll see how that goes. I'm pretty sure they still have Jack Doyle running around playing tight end for Indy. Maybe he gets some short, cross the middle type receptions, and they can slowly work the ball down the field. But nonetheless, it's going to be interesting how Frank Reich's able to game plan against Denver and if they're able to do enough to beat them on the road.
Cody, do you like Mo Alley Cox player props tonight? That was one player I thought about taking on either an anytime touchdown or over receiving yards. Cody, what do you think about Mo Alley Cox?
He's plus 390 to score, so really good value if you like him there. They're not even – it's hard to find receive. You can get him at 19.5 yards for receiving yards, but, I would never take that compared to the touchdown. I would say if he gets targeted, it's going to be 70% of the targets are within the 20, so might as well take the value at touchdown. The one thing I was going to say, I have a Twitter space at 4, so hopping off after this. But you mentioned Cortland Sutton you liked for a touchdown score. You like Nyheim Hines just in general. Is there better value, Cortland Sutton plus 150 to score or Nyheim Hines plus 170 to score?
Cody, was that to me or?
Yeah, because you're the one that I thought you brought up. Colton Sutton could be a touchdown score tonight.
So it was Cortland Sutton. Who was the other player?
It was Sutton plus 150 or Naheem Hines to score plus 170. What's the better value?
I like Sutton. I think Sutton's just the safer pick. I think Naheem Hines is. I like it, but not when you say value. To me, value is what's safer with my money, and return on the amount of risk. And I think Cortland Sutton's probably the better value, especially again without Javonte Williams. I think Russell Wilson's more inclined to throw, looking for a jump ball opportunity with Cortland Sutton. So I think the value play is more there. Again, I was surprised. I thought Naeem Hines anytime touchdown would have been a better odds. Actually, I thought that could have been a little bit higher, and that's part of the reason I felt the way I did. Because if those odds are higher, that's when I start to feel good about Naeem Hines as the anytime touchdown play.
And Cody, just to piggyback off that, the Sutton being the better value, Colts defense only has one interception on the season, so I think it's more likely that Naheem Hines struggles. Or he's going to have to work for a score. Whereas I think Sutton's going to be able to push. They're going to be able to push the ball down the field, and Russell will find him for sure.
Yo, keep killing it, JT. I'm popping off. I'll see you guys later tonight.
Right on, man. Sounds good. DJ and Soul, I got you up here, man, on the stage. Welcome. What are your thoughts for tonight, or what are you thinking? How we doing? Do I got you? Are you there? All right, well, I'll come back then. Captain, you've been up here all day, man. How we doing? Happy Thursday. You ready for the game tonight or what?
Yeah, well, as ready as I'm going to be for this game. Yeah. How's it going, guys?
We're good, man. I'm sure as a Chiefs fan, you're ready to watch the Broncos suffer. But I think the sentiment of everybody in here is it's probably going to be Broncos getting the W tonight.
Yeah, I mean, as much as it pains me to say, I got to get with the Brownies tonight too, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I got the Broncos, not by a ton, but definitely as the winner. I like the under too. I think I'm just going with, sentiment right now. I actually really like that Cortland Sutton play to get a touchdown too. I think that's a really solid play. Outside of that, I'm planning on watching what is probably going to be a pretty boring game. Either way, I think the Broncos will win. But either way, you know me, like if Indy pulls it off, great. It's great for me.
Sorry, guys, I was rugged a little bit there. Not sure what was going on. My screen froze. But, yeah, Cav, I think it's going to be one of them boring games, and we'll just grind it out. But, nonetheless, guys, I appreciate everybody being here today. Righto, Butt Fumble, thank you guys for being upstage. For all the Bet3 people in here, make sure you go follow these guys. So much value they're bringing to the sports space, and super happy to have them in these spaces and checking us out. So, thank you guys for being here today. Will, Cap, as always, love you guys. Appreciate it. The game tonight is on Amazon Prime. Apparently, you can stream it on Twitch. We found that out yesterday. So if you're into Twitch, you can find it through Prime on Twitch. But nonetheless, guys, enjoy the game, and we'll be back tomorrow to basically preview the baseball playoffs, and then we'll cover Week 5 Sunday games as well. So y'all take it easy.